So Grubby knew all along about patch 2.0. Well, let's find out more, shall we? We're going to react to his video. I can't believe it. Blizzard is back to repair Warcraft 3's client and reputation.
Yo guys, what's up? The rumors were true. Warcraft Reforged is having its makeover at long last. On October the 15th, a internal development patch note leaked and was uploaded to the PTR of Warcraft 3 Battle.net launcher. The data mining showed that a patch had been uploaded with the code 2.0 point something that had never been done before, and it hinted at the idea that perhaps Blizzard had come back and had started working on delivering a better Reforged experience.
First of all, that's a good idea. If they want to get people on board, use the Frozen Throne logo
for Warcraft 3. And now I can reveal finally that this is true.
The coloring.
I have before me here a Warcraft 3 internal development build where I've been able to test and give some feedback about various things. And I'm going to be able to show you guys everything that's new today, following the news of this happening that you may have already seen at the Warcraft Direct show today on November the 13th. You see, Blizzard is celebrating their 30-year anniversary for the Warcraft franchise. And while they only mentioned World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and Warcraft Rumble in their official announcement, in the last few weeks, we have been getting rumors about potential work being done on Warcraft Reforged and maybe a Warcraft 2 Remastered coming out. And I'm going to be talking to you today about everything that's new with Warcraft Reforged. Keep in mind that this is a work in progress and that even in the coming weeks, months, and perhaps beyond, Blizzard is still going to be releasing updates to Warcraft Reforged, or let's call it Warcraft 3.
That's pretty huge, actually. That was one thing I wasn't completely sure, whether they were just going to stick with what they've done for now and be like, that patch is good for you, that should keep you appeased, because partly they're reselling the game under the battle chest by Warcraft 1, 2, and 3, you know, Warcraft 1 and 2 remastered with the Warcraft 3 Reforged. So because they're selling it again, they had to sort of do the quality of life and make it a bit more polished so they can get away with making you pay for it. So to know that they're going to be doing more for it is interesting. Very interesting.
For simplicity's sake. So without further ado, let's jump into it and see what's new today. Immediately obvious is the new UI look here of the opening screen. This is very obviously a callback to how Warcraft 3 used to look like with the Reign of Chaos release in the year of 2002 on July 3rd, and then the Frozen Throne expansion release on July the 1st in 2003. Whereas Reforged brought a reimagining of how Battle.net 2.0 and how Warcraft Reforged was going to be looking like with new client changes, I think many would agree that it was not necessarily for the better. And so while this isn't a one-to-one comparison to how it used to look like,
that campaign,
it is still something that's overlaid now on top of Battle.net 2.0, I can't be the only one
sounds like the sort of name I would have used.
That thinks that this is a lovely improvement and callback to when we had a simple but beautiful and elegant opening menu with a TFT look, just like we used to have before Reforged came out 4 years ago. You can even click on this button right here to see it in the Reign of Chaos style.
It's like an Easter egg.
This is just a visual change and doesn't affect gameplay, but it's pretty cool that you can pick your opening screen based on whether you think the expansion or the original game looks better. Before I show you the rest, I just want to point out that this and many other things you're going to be seeing proves that Blizzard has been operating with more freedom and agility than they had before when they were developing and releasing Reforged, during which time the Blizzard Classic team was likely constrained greatly by bureaucratic process, extreme budget cuts, bad morale, and egregious mismanagement. To name an example, I made a 17 quality of life improvement feedback list for Blizzard 2 months ago on YouTube, not knowing that this was going to be happening. And whether they saw that or used their own common sense or other feedback from the community, just for myself I checked, and at least 7 of the quality of life improvements and changes that I suggested have in fact been implemented. So I'll show you all about
I think there's a very good chance they saw that and that was a big inspiration for them.
That in this video. Before I go on to the specifics, I'm very hopeful and cathartically gratified with what we've been getting so far and what I hope we're even going to be getting in the coming months. But for now, I'll just show you guys what's new and let you form your own opinions. To begin with, we've harkened back to the old days of having a single player menu and a multiplayer menu behind which all the single player and multiplayer is encapsulated. This seems like a logical thing to do, but it was very confusing and messy in Reforged client.
You get
to the
stuck.
point that sometimes you didn't even know if you presided inside the single player submenu or the multiplayer submenu because it just wasn't clear. Lo and behold, when we click multiplayer now, we're greeted with a very similar interface, very akin to the olden days, with a large chat and a similar UI to how we used to have it.
So much better.
I personally think this is lovely. This is going to be a great location for people to discuss politics in a respectful manner with each other and have discussions about other important topics that have a home inside the Warcraft 3 club.
Yeah, if you guys got any thoughts and opinions about Trump or Kamala, feel free to post those in the Warcraft 3 general chat.
Client. If anything, even though this is likely going to be filled with several controversial discussions and potentially
Sorry, Kamala.
insults, it's also a place to connect with other people. And even if you don't partake, you're going to be feeling like you're part of a society, rather than the more socially isolated experience of Battle.net 2.0, like it is in StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3 Reforged before today.
He's so quick
This is
at
how it
typing.
looks like when you chat. We have the chat, the friends tab, we have a clan tab where you can make your own clans and invite members again. Let's take a look at some of the menus that you can go into. So you've got the versus tab where you can choose what mode you want to be playing. So here you can pick your race, Orc, Undead, Night Elf. We're going to pick Night Elf for instance. Then here you can click on the leaderboard so you can see how you stand in the world. They made improvements to the leaderboard. Now you start at the All Races tab again rather than starting at Night Elf when you pick Night Elf. So that's how it should be. It's going to be centering on your own profile wherever that is in the ranked, or perhaps
It's got the level here as well. That makes me nostalgic for being like, you know, level 50 back in the old days and whatnot.
show your own ranking here at the bottom or anything like that. I can't see it now because this particular account doesn't have any ladder rankings yet, but it is a great improvement. Furthermore, in the versus screen, of course, you can be picking 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, and FFA. This is how you can invite friends to your ranked party as well. And of course, you can do your map vetoes here also. After you've selected...
Not that it's a massive deal, but I still think there should be more than 5 placement matches, personally. In an ideal world. Probably 10 to 15.
What you're going to be playing, you can press find match, and you're going to be searching for that mode. The cool thing is, when you get out of this menu, you can also use the quick find button right here that shows what race you've selected and what mode you are playing in. Of course, we have the custom game menu in order to create and join custom map lobbies. Standardized tournaments are back, automated tournaments, playing at various times in the day for people to be able to join with expert.
So just to talk about the custom games for a moment, and you might go into it later, but there's a filter system now, so you can actually search for custom games under the name. So if I host a game, I can look in my Warcraft 3 folder of maps and then type BA to find Balanced Hero Survival, or LE to, you know, start to locate all of the maps that have LE in them, being Legion TD being one of them, so I can quickly identify it. So now I don't have to have separate folders, which is what I did before. I had lots of separate folders because it was easier to have like 10 maps in one folder, so I didn't have to scroll down forever to find what I was looking for. Now I can have them all in the same folder and just filter for it. So that's brilliant, that is.
To create and join custom map lobbies. Standardized tournaments are back, automated tournaments, playing at various times in the day for people to be able to join with explanations of how they work. And they're very prominently visible now compared to before, both in this tournament screen as well as here in the top right when the next tournament is going to be coming.
Yep,
the leaderboard
clean.
is accessible via here as well. And of course, we've got player profiles, very akin to how it used to be. Not 100% the same, because you can't write any text in your profile like back in 2003, but then again, that's probably not going to be as popular these days anyway as compared to before, since we have so many other types of social media these days. Profile looks pretty snazzy, and I believe they're working on a way for you to watch replays directly from your match history if the replay is available.
That would be
Though
good.
I haven't personally been able to test that. So that's the multiplayer tab and the new multiplayer look.
One other point, going back to the custom games, is you don't have 500 folders now. If you ever went into your custom game folder list, or even just your maps folder, there'd be like billions of folders that were just pointless. They were created for some reason and just sat there, and they took up space. Now they don't show, so that's good.
Look and experience. You can also see how the menu performance has improved a lot from release Reforged. It's pretty quick to change menus and click on tabs, etc.
Give us an instant option. We need an instant option. Just straight to it. But this is still based on the web UI, so the web UI is slow and clunky in places. So I don't know if you're ever going to be able to get an instant option because it's still going to have a kind of lag to it.
The campaign screen has been reimagined a little bit with
nice.
these books representing chapters of the campaign, grouping together the Warcraft 3 original and the TFT to be a seamless, ordered list of campaigns. So I think that's pretty snazzy looking. Finally ending with the founding of Durotar RPG style missions. Alright.
I do wonder if they fixed the founding of Durotar, because they had a lot of issues. I remember people playing through that and being buggy. So we'll see whether that's something they've done or we'll work on.
So let's go take a look at the custom game section in single player. One thing that I think is pretty cool, this is where most people that are going to be trying out Melee for the first time are going to be going towards. And whereas before the good old Booty Bay was always the starter map, as it ranks at the top.
It's a jank map.
The fact that it is a 2-player map, which ranks at the top, and it's also ABC ordered alphabetically. And so it always began with Booty Bay. So you would see that when new players try out Warcraft 3 for the first time, they always go to Booty Bay.
That's very old.
Booty Bay is a pretty horrendous map and is not very illustrative of how Warcraft 3 is played generally. So they created another map that ranks higher on the ABC, which is in fact the standard ranked Lost Temple, and they call
I would say Twisted Meadows is probably the most widely known of old time, going back to forward. Lost Temple technically is incredibly respected as a map because it began in StarCraft and all that. But I think for gameplay aspect, I think you get more value from Twisted Meadows than you do from a Lost Temple right now. However, this is still much better than Booty Bay.
Called it a starter map. So now when people start playing and they just want to get in the game immediately, they're going to be hitting create, and it's going to be a 2-player version of Lost Temple where you always span across from each other. So I think that's pretty cool. So let's go take a look at the in-game.
One thing I don't think they have done, and it's something I don't know they can, but I would like, is a retroactive ability to add observers once the game is already created. At the moment, you have to decide whether you're going to have observers or not before you create the game. So if you accidentally create the game, and then people start joining and you go, oh no, I haven't got observers, then you have to come out, rehost it, sort of thing. It's not a massive deal, but it's just kind of a nuisance. So you got observers here. If there's a way to click the button, add observers, then you can have little tabs come up over here and here and change it to referees and stuff like that. Just be able to do it within the game. So more flexibility.
From each other. So I think that's pretty cool. So let's go take a look at the in-game of this new Warcraft Reforged. To people that are in the know, you can immediately see some changes. Notably, the lighting effects are different, which also casts different types of shadows. So we are right now using classic HD graphics. This is an entirely new and third graphics toggle. Basically, you're going to be having multiple options of how you want your game to look like. We'll go through the full menu later, but for now suffice to say that if you toggle the classic mode here, it's going to look virtually the same as original Warcraft 3 Classic and the way that you've been seeing me play Warcraft 3 for the last few years.
All of us, basically.
It's just pretty much classic entirely. But if you click the Reforged toggle, but then move all these sliders to the right so that you've got Classic HD, basically they are up-res versions of classic graphics that show more pixels and higher fidelity, and also use a different lighting setting essentially than original Warcraft 3 had. Whether you like classic HD more or true classic is going to be definitely a question of choice and preference. The differences aren't large, and I can show it more later in detail, but
they're not exactly the same, but they are. That's a good thing. If you play with it, you can tell the difference, such as the shadows specifically on the hero unit or the actual unit models for characters is more clean. Where if you play on the actual classic version, just without Reforged, then it's essentially a blob, the shadow. So I like the shadows when they work cleanly and the sun is up doing its job. There is a kind of much brighter shine to them, which works for some models and doesn't work for others. It feels like almost a StarCraft engine in the Warcraft 3 sort of thing, like how they have the differentiation of how they do things. I think it can work, but I don't like it in Reforged. I want this in Classic, because if you still play with the Reforged, you get like the laggier experience, in my opinion.
Know that both the Classic, Original, and Reforged graphics have been pretty much untouched. There's just more choices now for you to pick from. Before I get into the nitty-gritty of doing a graphics comparison breakdown, let's first show a couple of other things that are different when you're inside a game of Warcraft 3 with the new Reforged 2.0, as it were. So first of all, you can see all these yellow text here. Of course, you can turn all of them off via typing /ping, /apm, /fps, and /time. But it's pretty cool that nowadays you can have an optional time clock that actually corresponds to real amount of time that has passed. You still have the day-night dial that shows what time of the day it is, which has real gameplay implications, but having an in-game clock is quite a nice learning tool, and some people may like to display it. And if you don't, you just type /time.
It's good for custom games as well, so I can know how long I've been in a frickin' RPG map for.
All of these can also be changed via the in-game menu, show time elapsed, show FPS, show ping, show actions per minute, and you can also show portraits and cinematics. Some of you may have already noticed that the HUD I've been using is much smaller than it normally is. This is how the full HUD looks like at 100%. I would be covering rather a lot of the minimap. It is rather large, takes up a large portion of the screen, and it has always been like this when you play Warcraft 3. But now, you can go to the gameplay settings, and you can make it as small as 0, which makes the HUD absolutely tiny. And while this may...
It works for some things that you don't need to see too much information on, but the mini-map is pretty valuable, as well as the unit stats.
Make it more difficult to mouse click items. This is of course an entirely personal choice, and it gives you a lot of game screen to enjoy visually, and also you're going to be seeing more things, and it may be a competitive advantage. Anyone that still clicks things in the command card is probably not going to make it this small, but go for something in between, such as for instance 70%, which is still quite a bit smaller than the original. Or maybe you want something like
that's pretty good, that.
40%. Or 30%, like this is 30. I shouldn't say percent because obviously 0% would be invisible. Let's say value 30. Another really cool thing that has changed is that you can go to the hotkeys tab and change almost all the hotkeys from inside the game client. Navigate to org and choose a new hotkey for the Altar of Storms. You can immediately save it and apply it. And it will be applied in the next game you play. It does not automatically update yet while you're in the game for most hotkeys. Though I did...
He said yes, so hopefully they can get that to work. I think it works, because I'm pretty sure I tested that yesterday when I played the first level of the campaign. I changed the movement from, G back to M, because I normally have it on G, and it worked. It refreshed it, it showed M, and it also worked when I pressed it. So, yes.
Did do some testing and realized that other hotkeys do change on the fly while you're still inside the game. Namely something like the attack command. If I change that away from A to L, for instance, I don't know why I would want to do that, but you can. Then you can see that that's immediately reflected in the command card, and I can press L and do an attack command. The cool thing is, in the past, you would need to do hotkeys via the custom keys txt file inside your documents folder of Warcraft 3. And while that is still possible, basically this in-game hotkey customization option gives those commands to the txt file and edits it accordingly. And it's pretty cool that some of the hotkeys automatically update while you're still in the game. Because before, when you wanted to make changes to your hotkeys, it always had to be done to the txt file, and then you had to join a new game as well. So you can do a little bit of fixing here while you're in the game, whereas for other hotkeys, you need to just join a new game again. But you can change it here and then join a new game, which is cool. When hosting and creating a multi...
Okay, so quick note on that. I like that you've got a big page here where you can see a lot of information for changing the hotkeys. However, I do have the example of StarCraft here in the background, which I'll show in a moment. So this is the StarCraft remaster.
Battle cruiser operational.
Which is nice. When you click on the unit, you get the sound. You can clearly see.
Explorer reporting. Explorer reporting.
So the science vessel, you can change the hotkeys here to O or T, E, that kind of thing, or Q, W, E, and then save it. You have to do this through the menu, though. So in Warcraft 3, they've made it so you can actually change it live during the game, which is fantastic. I really like that. But I'm not sure if you can change the command card hotkeys. Whereas if you notice on the video, you kind of change the actual default hotkeys because it's attached to that custom keys text file, which doesn't take into account the command. So I don't think there is a tab for command card, aka M for move. Well, there is for that one. Yeah, there is M for move, actually. General. It could be in general, actually. I might have to have a look. I don't have it up at the moment. So maybe I'm wrong on that one. Maybe you can change patrol, all of those ones. If you can, fair enough. But can you change the bottom 4 abilities? Because in a custom game, say for example, there's a custom-made hero. Let's just call him a Mountain King, and he's got Stormbolt, Thunderclap. But they're custom versions of it. Will those show up in the custom hotkeys? Will I be able to change those manually? Can I switch to grid if I need to during the gameplay? Or better yet, a QWER system for my initial hotkeys? I don't know if you can. I don't think you can. That could be something they could do. And as well, people definitely would like a feature to be able to change the hotkeys of the inventory items. So it's currently 784512 on the numpad on the right hand side of your keyboard. If there's a way to change that, that would also be very good. So you could change that on the fly. That would definitely be a big feature for many people because many of us use a third-party tool to change those. I've changed mine from the 784512 to F1 through to F6 on my keyboard. I just press those buttons for my items.
Again, but you can.
Oh, and also here's the StarCraft 2 version of the hotkeys showing up here, so you can see the command card clearly. Whereas in the Warcraft 3, you can't really see the command card in this kind of demonstration where you click on the unit and that. So the Warcraft 3 demonstration here is good because you can see everything pretty clearly and change the hotkeys as you go, as opposed to like in StarCraft where you have to click on each unit individually. But the downside of the Warcraft 3 one is you don't have that kind of fine tuning where you can actually look at the command card itself for the unit or the hero or whatever and change it there.
Change it here and then join a new game, which is cool. When hosting and creating a multiplayer game or joining a ladder game with allies and enemies, you can from now on see your allies' race, your opponents' race as they were picked when they queued up for the game, which is something we've been asking for a long time, and now we're finally going to be having
there it is.
I absolutely love this. I mean, it's a simple thing, it's an obvious thing. This and many other things probably should have been in the game when Reforged came out, but I, for one, am very grateful that I no longer have to start every game when I'm playing multiplayer with, yo guys, did you see the opponent's race? Yo guys, did you see their race? Because it's going to be able to be visible right here. If they picked random, it's going to show the random symbol, as obviously it shouldn't be giving away what race they are if they are random. But for people that picked undead, elf, and human, you can see it right here on the F11 allies menu, and I love it.
I wonder if your opponent is random, it would have this. It's not necessary at all, but it would be like it's random to start off with, and then when you scout it, it switches to the race that they actually are. It's totally not necessary.
Note that when you're inside the classic graphics toggle, you can actually decide to have HUD side panels on or off when you're inside the game. This is how it looks like when they are on, but you can now choose to, in these settings, remove them as well by going to the options and gameplay menu, turning them off, saving, and then you've got that extra
may as
free
well
space
do that
as well. Note that when you have the HUD side panels on, you cannot touch HUD scaling. It will always use the 100 value when you turn them on. Now I'm going to be going over some of the settings, options and changes that Reforged 2.0 has introduced. After that, I'm going to be doing a graphical side-by-side comparison for some of the different graphic settings that one can choose. And then finally I'll show some tooltip improvements that Blizzard has done for various heroes and units and abilities in the game. Alright, so the settings menu is accessible from anywhere in the game by pressing this hamburger menu right here. You go to the options, and here are some of the new choices that we have. When we're in the Reforged graphic settings, we can change things that we had never been able to change before. I encourage you guys to try out various settings and see what you like the best. You can put lighting on high, medium, low. You can change foliage, which is off by default, but can be turned up as well. Anti-aliasing, I don't remember we had that before in Warcraft 3. The effects of spells, particles, textures, and shadows. And so this is all new stuff that we were not able to pick before. Then when we go to the sound effects, most of these are as they were before, though it's been reordered a bit in the new look of the menu. But one pretty cool thing is that you can pick other types of music as well. Not just the whole Warcraft 3 soundtrack that you guys have been listening to during this video, but you can also go, if you want to, I don't think you should, I mean it's a taste of preference, but you can also go to Warcraft 1 music or Warcraft 2 music.
How can you do that?
As of the making of this video, Warcraft 2 is not how I remember the original to be. This sounds like a lower quality 16-bit version.
It is, yes, that is.
But I'm sure they're going to be getting it right for the 13th of November, which is when you guys are going to be seeing this video.
They did, he's right. Yeah, no, it's great to have the Warcraft 1 or Warcraft 2 soundtrack. I recently played through them and they're fantastic. Very nostalgic.
That I'm making now. Yo guys, Grubby from the future here. Turns out they already fixed the music soundtrack for Warcraft 2 to be the original Warcraft 2 soundtrack in all its glory. Take a listen. That's the correct one. So good. So if you want to play with that now from the client, you can. Alright, back to Lumberjack Grubby. The Warcraft 1 music, I have no personal nostalgia with it, and I think it's not as good as Warcraft 2 and 3. And I do think that Warcraft 3 is best played on Warcraft 3 music, just my personal preference, but it's pretty cool they give us those options, and it is also a nod towards the interconnectedness of the Warcraft anniversary event that is happening today. As you can see, Warcraft 1 is not quite as sophisticated as Warcraft 3, but it makes sense because it came out like 30 years ago.
It's still good, I like it.
Alright, we continue in good old Warcraft 3 music and we go to the next tab of the menu. We've got the gameplay menu where you may have seen a couple of cool new changes. The old settings are still there, such as the enabled improved zoom, being able to choose your default and max camera distance. One cool thing is that on first installation of Warcraft 3, the unit life bars will always be on rather than off. This is still a setting, but I think it is a modernization of the likely intent for new players that they're going to be wanting to see their health bars. Some people may benefit from using team-colored life bars, which will make it clearer which faction everyone's units are on. Though I personally don't like this setting, it's good of course that it exists and that it is an option. Most of these were previously brought in with the reforged that we got in 2020, such as the special hero status bars and the showing hero level, as well as the subgroup order modifier key. Though it looks like the tooltip overlay is incorrect, that it says press F5 default. That's a feedback that I'll be sending forward as well. And if you guys see any other bugs, make sure to let them know. It is clear that they have been listening. Also, the well-intended but not very well-functioning formation movement toggle is disabled by default when you start Warcraft 3 for the first time ever, which I think is nice. It was kind of like a newbie pitfall that this was always on by default, and you would have to tell people, yo, turn off your formations when you're new to Warcraft 3.
It's actually kind of easy to turn it on by accident as well in the game. There's some sort of hotkey combination that I even accidentally fat finger. And then I'm like, why are my units moving so slow? And it's like, oh, I see. Yeah, I put the toggle formation on.
So this is just one of those improved default settings that helps people set up their Warcraft 3 a little bit better. Numbers for cooldowns was also previously existing, but the showing of a deny icon is new. Basically, it's like in W3 Champions as well as in Dota, that when you kill one of your own units, an exclamation mark will show up that outlines that you were the one that got that kill, and it's going to be in your player color. And this is pretty good player
That's very
feedback for both players to know that no experience would have been granted to an opponent with that. That is why that's significant. And it's pretty cool that they've picked up such a functionality and made it an option to show that. There is now...
I totally agree with that. That's good for the player because you can get that quick visual information. But if you don't spot it, the viewers that are watching, be it a tournament game or whatnot, or observer mode, it will be a lot more clear whether the player was successful in gaining that critical last hit on a peasant or a footman, or whether you managed to kill it yourself. For those that don't know, at high levels of play, you will kill off your own units if they're going to die, because it's better that you do that than your opponent get the experience from it.
Now a goldmine unit counter that when it's on and you put your peons in the goldmine, you're going to be having the 5 out of 5 markation or 4 out of 5, which is a great help to new players because before the only way to ascertain that you had full workers, which it was of course a skill issue, was to constantly hold shift and select all your workers multiple times and then looking at how many are selected in your UI.
Now my 4 versus 4 RT allies have no excuse.
Or you could confirm it visually from experience as well by looking at it, but having a counter is a great quality of life improvement. Your Warcraft 3 will launch with in-game opponent chat disabled. That means by default you will not be greeted, befriended, or flamed by any opponents you'll be playing against on the multiplayer ladder.
It's fine with
or
me.
in custom games. If you do want this connection to your opponents, then you can just turn this on right here, which I will be doing. Going over to the 4th tab, the input tab, your scroll speed and keyboard scroll speed will start at 50%.
You know what they should do? Is, you know, like in Hearthstone, you can't actually type to your opponent, but you can put down emojis and stuff like that. They could have that instead for people. So if you didn't want to see like the physical hurty words that someone might type to you, which let's face it, some people should just be muted because they're just literally spamming the worst stuff possible. But there's others that are like insult you in a funny way. So that's fun banter. Yeah, they could have always an emoji version or something, like a big smiley face when you kill their archmage. You just put this little emoji up on their screen, and it's like a Warcraft character going
to your opponents. Then you can just turn
grief
this on
them that
right
way,
here, which I will be doing. Going over to the 4th tab, the input tab, your scroll speed and keyboard scroll speed will start at 50%. I always max these out. Here you can choose to use the classic grid or custom key bindings, which is the same as it was before. Nothing new here. But of course, the way that the hotkeys can be changed has been reimagined.
See, that there is the slight issue we have with the hotkeys.
Nothing new here.
Is we can't change the command card. We can change the actual letters for these commands, but in custom games, they're not necessarily always in the same position, and they're not necessarily always going to use the same generalistic commands as well. Or like I say, specific hotkey abilities won't be able to be changed in custom games anyway, because they won't necessarily be the default Stormbolt or the default this or that. If you have the ability to actually change the command card itself, that would be very critical for many of us.
But of course, the way that the hotkeys can be changed has been reimagined. And
for those that don't know, the command card is the thing at the bottom right that shows your movement, patrol abilities, level up options.
Maybe reimagined again in the future, or so I've heard. This may not be the final look and implementation, and functionality may even be expanded. But for now, this is a big improvement over how it has been possible to change hotkeys in the last 22 years of Warcraft 3 having been out. And last but certainly not least, you've got the Reforged tab, where if you've turned on the Reforged mode toggle, you can decide how you want your game to look like in a very granular way. So your choices will be classic how it used to be, we'll call that classic SD. Then there's classic HD, which is actually how the game looked like during my talking over the last few minutes. And then there's the Reforged graphics that came and were developed and designed by a combination of Blizzard Classic in 2018, as well as their outsourced art team from Malaysia, Lemon Sky. You could have heroes looking like classic heroes, but your units looking like Reforged. I don't know who's going to be wanting to play like that, but that's a very personal decision that you can now make. And I think having these options is absolutely fantastic. It may also be important for user-generated content, like any map makers that want to have some kind of best of both worlds experience. And they may be making unique decisions here or suggesting unique settings that may make their map look the best. And you may like the environment that Reforged brought, but not like any of the units or buildings, and just go into a game like this with 1 out of 6 Reforged settings and the rest all on Classic HD. Even the icons can be separately changed, as well as the visual effects like immolation, mana burn, and literally everything else like lightning shield. And now I'm going to be showing you the difference between the full Classic HD, the full Reforged, and the full Classic SD when looking at the same thing. And I encourage you to try out your own personal subdivision settings that you may be enjoying. I do expect in the future I'll mostly just be using either Classic HD or full Classic SD, as the Reforged graphics really aren't to my liking that much, but to each their own. So first I'm going to be starting up and showing a base and a lot of different units in Reforged settings. So this is the Archmage, this is how Blizzard looks like in Reforged, and this is how Classic Blizzard looks like. Alright, let's show the Classic HD graphics now. Here's the Blizzard. It should also be noted that, though I believe they may have plans to change that, in the current version of Warcraft 3, if you are on the Reforged toggle here, you will automatically also accept the Reforged audio changes. And hopefully we'll get a 7th toggle here where we can choose to use that or not when we're using Reforged or Classic HD graphics. But for now it's still coupled together, which means if you like your peasants to sound like this when they die, then currently that's something you'll be getting when you're on Reforged settings. But if you don't like it, your only recourse would be to have Classic SD.
I don't want the Classic HD as connected to Reforged. I want it connected to Classic, so you actually have the option to choose between Classic, which is no changes, and then Classic SD Plus, for example, or Classic Plus, where you have the same as Classic, but just that shiny look to it and the shadows more clean and crisp and accurate to the model itself. That's what I want. I don't really want anything to do with the Reforged because I feel like it definitely impacts on my performance on the PC.
Graphic settings, which means I'll definitely be using Classic SD until I get the option to turn off
Mr. Back to
Reforged
Warcraft.
sounds.
Thank you.
Because listen to this.
For the king!
Those sounds. The Night Elf Archer was the
That's
best
how
one, if you
peasants
know what I
sound
mean.
like when it dies. And only like that. There it is. So unless you want various death sounds on archers, peasants, peons, grunts, and more, then it's Classic SD for now. But if you do enjoy them, hopefully you'll be able to choose that as a setting going forward, even when using Classic HD graphic settings. I also noticed Blizzard made a pass at some of the tooltips of various units and heroes in the game. These are the ones I've been able to find, going over everything and comparing it with the original tooltips. Blademaster's Bladestorm now reads, rendering him immune to magic and spells, which is of course accurate, as when
I didn't know he did changes on
Blademaster
it.
uses Bladestorm, he cannot be hit by units like Chimeras, nor can he be storm bolted or something like that. The same is true for the Blood Mage's Phoenix, that now reads that it has magic and spell immunity, as well as resistant skin. It is true, Frostworms cannot attack a Phoenix. This
It's
one
small,
makes a
but
lot
it's
of sense
good.
as well. For the Crypt Lord's Locust Swarm, it ends by saying pierces spell immunity, which is a very useful tooltip addition that tells people that this does, in fact, and I tested this, work against units that have spell immunity, such as a Destroyer or a Dryad. This is in fact true for pretty much all the hero ultimate abilities, and while most Warcraft 3 players know this, there is no mention of it in the tooltip, and it looks like now there is. It's quite akin to the Dota tooltips, where it explains whether someone has magical immunity or whether you can pierce that as well. It's a nice little extra quality of life tooltip text that can help people to understand that Locust Swarm will in fact hit everyone. Well, I guess except mechanical units. For the Death Knight's Death Coil, it now says healing pierces spell immunity, which correctly indicates that you can use a Death Coil on your Lich while it is under the effects of a Potion of Lesser Invulnerability. Additionally,
Very
you are
specific.
able to use QoL on destroyers, which are magic immune and spell immune, but can still receive a death coil. This is also pretty much true for all healing effects in Warcraft 3. You can always use priest healing, death coil, healing wave, and tranquility on units that are invulnerable, even though invulnerable makes them otherwise impervious to pretty much all effects that aren't piercing that immunity. So it's cool that QoL now says that as well. For the Paladin's Holy Light, it says the same thing. Healing pierces spell immunity. Naga's Tornado also pierces spell immunity, and it says so. Lich's Death and Decay used to read damages everything in its area of effect by 4% of its base hit points per second. Which is of course not very true, because the base hit point for a Lich is 475. But if I pick up Periapto Vitality and an enemy Lich Death and Decays me, then my base HP is 475, but my max health is higher, and so now it accurately reflects that, which is pretty neat. Max hit points
Why
per
not?
second. This is
Certainly
for Naga
in
Sea Witch is
detail.
Mana Shield, just like for Medusa in Dota 2, and for whatever the Naga Sea Witch was called in Dota 1, Mana Shield has always ignored the fact that she has hero armor,
Yes.
or what type of damage she is receiving. It didn't matter if it was piercing, magic, or siege. It always just did 100% to the mana of her pool. And now it accurately reflects that in the tooltip by saying blocked damage ignores armor and armor types, which is nice to know. Keeper of the Grove's Thorns aura used to read an aura that gives friendly nearby units a damage shield, which returns a percentage of a melee attacker's damage back to it, which is all kinds of wrong actually, like when you think about it. Because
There's not a shield.
one, it does not offer a damage shield, as no damage is mitigated. And when it says it returns a percentage of damage, it sounds like the damage would never be taken by the Keeper aura affected unit in the first place. Like he receives 100, but then knocks 15 back, so he only receives 85. So it was really quite confusing,
blowing
and
my
it's
brain.
cleaned up quite a bit. It now reads, an aura that causes enemies to take a percentage of melee damage dealt to nearby friendly units. So enemies that do damage to nearby friendly units now take a percentage of that melee damage. And it no longer seems to suggest that there's any form of mitigation.
Alarist says, why is this patch 2.0? I can answer that. Marketing reasons.
The Tinker's Rocket tooltip now says bombards an area with rockets, damaging and stunning enemy ground and air units for 1 second. Also hits mechanicals and buildings. Way more descriptive and also correct. Shadowhunter's Healing Wave used to read, calls forth a wave of energy that heals a target and bounces to nearby friendlies. Each bounce heals less damage. And now it reads, each bounce restores fewer hit points. Which seems to be a little cleaner.
It's
than
good
before.
that
I
he
like
did
it.
this. I think
And
he
for
went into a lot of
Shadowhunter's
detail
Hex,
here.
The description seems to have been greatly
It's not something I would have actually
expanded
thought
to
of.
show everything Hex does, though it doesn't show everything Hex does actually. It used to just say transforms
Certainly
an enemy
helps
unit
new
into
players a
random
lot.
critter, disabling special abilities. What are special abilities? That's how it always was. I mean, I didn't need it to be bigger, but I guess it makes sense that it now also reads Hex disables a unit's abilities, item usage, ability to attack, and slows the unit to minimum movement speed. By the way, it also stops the
Experience.
hero from gaining experience if they are hexed, if a unit dies near them while they're hexed. And they also don't have mana regeneration, unless that's been fixed somehow, but
How do you explain
that was
all
always
that?
the case. It even disables active channels like defense on the footman, so that when he has defend on and you hex him, your piercing damage will deal full damage again. So hex does a lot, and now it pretty much has most of it, whereas before it just said special abilities. For Priestess of the Moon, it is now clear that the Scout Owl is invincible. Temporarily summons an invincible Owl Scout, which can be used to scout the map, can see invisible units. Starfall is correctly listed as piercing spell immunity. You are able to hit dryads and destroyers. Same is true for Pitlord's Doom, pierces spell immunity. For the Obsidian statue, I can detect 3 changes. It used to read, large flying unit that must consume magic to sustain its mana. Excellent at destroying enemy casters and clusters of ground forces, just like it does now. And then it said, initially has spell immunity, devour magic, absorb mana, and orb of annihilation. Which is funny because it has that initially, but that's also all it has. It had nothing else. So the initially has is gone, and now it reads destroyers have magic and spell immunity, which makes sense because again they're not just spell immune, they're also immune to magic. And you may think that
Maybe it used to, not that it ever did, but in some sort of beta build for Warcraft 3, it was supposed to be spell immune for like 30 seconds to a minute or something and then lose it. And we just got the busted version where it's always spell immune. That's cool.
That distinction is obvious, but it isn't per se, because spell bracers, well, actually, let's not get into that. Just trust me, it makes sense. Magic and spell immunity both makes sense, and then all the other abilities is still the same. The other two abilities have been slightly retouched as well. It used to read, for Essence of Blight, restores 10 hit points to nearby friendly units, but you didn't know up to how many it could do. Now it says to up to 6 nearby friendly non-mechanical units, which is correct.
That's
It
better.
doesn't specify that it costs you more mana when you max out the amount of units that you can heal, and less mana than listed when you're healing fewer units. But that's a relatively small concession.
I don't even know that.
Part. At least it's clear now that you can heal up to 6 nearby friendly units. For its Spirit Touch, again, restores 2 mana to up to 6 nearby friendly units, whereas before it didn't say how many it could heal. So that's a super neat change. And then finally, on the Destroyer itself, the spell immunity ability that it has, the passive, renders this unit immune to magic and most spells. And this spell immunity tag, many units have this in the game, and so I'm assuming that they're all going to be reading immune to magic and most spells, whereas before it just said renders this unit immune to spells, which really doesn't cover the load, because you also can't attack them with sorceresses, priests, shamans, etc., nor frostworms, and they're also not immune to all spells, because they're immune to most spells, notably.
I wonder if Finger of Death works in it. I assume Finger of Death overwrites that.
They're not immune to Coil, Tranquility, Locust Swarm, Tornado, etc. So I think that's a really cool rewording of spell immunity that clearly indicates what it actually does now. Hey guys, Grubby from the future here. I almost forgot to show you something really important and interesting as well. Remember the collection menu that Reforged came with? Well, its functionality has been expanded quite a bit. We've gotten a lot of extra freebies.
What? He doesn't have the female demon hunter ticked on? Or the female Death Knight? Is Grubby misogynist?
Basically, many of the single-player campaign skins have been made available for you to use even in your multiplayer games. So if you're playing 1-on-1 on the Battle.net ladder, if you're playing 4-on-4, you could have your Paladin be any of the Paladin skins that you played with in the campaign. You can have your Archmage be Antonidas. You can have your Mountain King be Muradin, and not just one of the standard generic Mountain King names and skins that we normally use in the game. So we're getting some cool customization, and it's going to be completely free, at least for now. None of these will be sold, we're just getting them. You can go into battle with your Blade Master looking like the Blade Master of the Blackrock clan or Grommash Hellscream. Alright, no talking anymore, let me show you some. Alright guys, you remember the standard Blade Master? Here's Blade Master with the skin.
This is one of the things I've been the most excited about.
The icon is different already.
Look at that.
Grommash Hellscream.
Look at the smile on his face. I had the same experience yesterday. I was playing with the Paladin, but I changed him into Admiral Proudmoore. And there's just something about having that sort of freedom to change the hero to look the way you want it to look. There's so many great skins in Warcraft 3
12 healthy, tiny
that you can just have so many options. Thank you, Kartov, for interrupting my piece there. I appreciate that. Thanks for popping in. But it's so cool. It's so cool. It's such a simple thing they can put in that doesn't impact the game whatsoever. And you actually have an option where you can turn it off, essentially, if you're the opposing player and you want to see Grubby's Blade Master look like the normal Blade Master, so you're not put off by this weird looking Blade Master that somehow looks like Grom. But if you want, you can have it on. And it's fantastic because I want to see what my opponent's going to have. Maybe my opponent has some weird skins and it's going to be great. What skins did you choose? Shum, thank you. Yes.
You can play with this now in 1-on-1. I think that's super cool.
And yes, I think Proudmoore should be a new different hero. I think ideally we get new heroes in the tavern, as well as one new hero for all the races, and human need an agility attacker, and it would look something like Admiral Proudmoore, or at least be a dude with a long sword. Or two
Of course,
swords.
we should have had this with Reforged release, but we didn't, but now we do, and that makes it all better. Gromash Hellscream is my Blade Master. I'll show you guys what my Farseer is.
Yeah, adds more personality. That's right.
For the horse!
It's Thrall. It's Thrall the Farseer. You can play with Thrall every game
Look
you
who
like.
it is.
Tauren Chieftain.
For the tribes.
For the tribes. It's Karen Bloodhoof. Notably, he doesn't look different here. That's because I'm playing on Classic HD, and apparently he doesn't have a skin upgrade here.
No,
but at the
not
very
yet.
least, he's still...
We've got to turn him into Tora. Everyone remember Tora? I'll do a slight detour. A slight detour. Hang on a second.
We
Wait for it
didn't,
to load. This is totally worth it. This is what we need instead of the Tauren Chieftain. I shouldn't drink this water, should I?
Our ally is under attack.
It's a natural reaction.
Immediately.
What the fuck is even happening? I'm losing the will to live? I don't know. So that's Tora. So imagine if you could have Tora instead of Kaen Bloodhoof here. The fun you could have.
sounds like Karen, which is pretty freaking cool.
Work complete. What do you
And here's the Shadow Hunter,
Death be a real treat.
Rokan from the Beastmaster campaign where you play with Rexar.
Das Dingo. I feel you, man.
It's nice to be able to play with some different voice acting as well.
You be tricksy.
Yeah.
All right, for
That's
Undead,
another
let's play with
interesting point.
Kel'Thuzad.
Because it was attached to the classic HD. What if you had it so, like here, you can select the different voice acting, like he says. You could mix and match it. You could have the original look, but you could choose a different... Well, I suppose this would be a lot of work for Blizzard to really put in, but theoretically it's totally doable. Is have separate looks, so you could have Grom, but he sounds like the original Blade Master rather than sound like Grom. You know, that kind of thing. If you wanted it, why not?
Deatharok, and let's see which Death Knight skin shall we use. We can go with the Fallen King Arthas, but it's only available in the Spoils of War edition, which of course I'm going to be having on my main account, but this particular account isn't loaded out with it. But we do have Arthas Frostmourne right here. Let's go check this one out. We choose these, and let's jump into a game with Undead. Okay, to show these Undead skins, I actually had to switch to Reforged graphics. Some skins are available in certain graphics, and some skins are only available in others. Note that the Reforged Undead Blight has received significant graphical
That does look
improvement.
different,
This looks
yeah.
so much better than how it used to look.
That's a
Aside
good
from
point.
that, let's check out the new Death Knight, Dreadlord, and Lich
It
skins.
looks
You
more
can
like
play with them
a Warcraft 2 remaster or something. The kind of like the 2D-ness of it.
matter if you use Reforged graphics.
upgrade complete?
Baron Bloodbane,
The night.
there's Deatharok,
Yeah.
and that's Kel'Thuzad the Lich. Alright guys, Night Elf has some pretty snazzy new skins as well. You can see it already in the icon for the Demon Hunter. I love playing with this voice lines. I love playing with this.
He says he loves it, but what about the female Demon Hunter? She's got the best voice lines in the game.
Evil Illidan. All of your custom games.
This is
are
really
ones
cool, though,
that are
Evil
like, you
Illidan.
Play with Illidan with the burning feet. Probably actually a pay-to-lose skin. Not that you paid, but seeing the burning feet.
because they can see you.
But it looks so cool, and the voice acting, man.
I am the hand Justice will be done.
My F original voice acting.
Yeah.
No different portrait or character or
Now's the
anything,
time.
but it's cool to play with these voice lines.
The guilty.
So as he was saying, they're doing updates, right? This is totally stuff they can do. And Sonny said it would only take a few hours. I don't know, a few hours. But certainly something that is within the realm of possibility that isn't like a ridiculous amount of work or requires any massive rework in reforging. Oh, we don't want that word.
Will suffer. I will finish the hunt.
I love
And the Priestess of
being
the
able
Moon.
to change the skins and the
The
voices.
original Tyrande voice.
By Eline.
On other graphic settings, you may also see Tyrande actually as she looked in the campaign, but here at least you got the voice, which is awesome.
As the goddess wills.
So there you have it. It's a whole bevy of improvements and settings that you can be picking from now when playing Warcraft Reforged. I think it's really cool that Blizzard is back in the building, be it because of restructuring or because of Microsoft or whatever, I don't know. I'm just glad that they're looking at and making updates, positive updates for Warcraft 3 again, that really connect well with what I and many others of the community have been asking for. I know it's easy to be on the Blizzard hate train, and I definitely have been as well, considering the way that they dropped the ball with Reforged and the radio silence for many years. And while 2 years ago we started having some semi-periodic balance changes, they were really nice, I still couldn't help but feel a sense of anger and abandonment sometimes when it came to how Warcraft and Reforged were handled in the last few years. I know that may seem a little entitled to some people because at the end of the day, you buy Warcraft 3 once for $60 22 years ago, and you can't realistically expect the game to still be balanced, patched, updated, given quality of life makeovers, tooltip changes, menu and UI revamps, etc. But of course, our expectations from Blizzard were high because they have been such a good game company for so many years, so it had been pretty sad to see the decline that they had been suffering in the last 10 years or so, with potentially shareholder pressure and management mismanagement causing direct collateral damage to Warcraft, the game that we all know and love.
And don't
it's always a
forget
mixture
breast
of
milk.
feelings, where on the one hand I'm disappointed by some of the things that had happened with Reforged and some of the damage that had been done to the reputation of the game, and thinking of what it could have been, but at the same time it's also mixed because I'm also very grateful that the servers are still up, that balance changes and UI changes are still happening, and UX changes are still happening. And I must say it feels quite nice that Blizzard is showing some love again and acknowledging us in front of the world. And so I think a little bit of reputation repair is happening right now with Blizzard, and I see that as an incredibly good thing. My contact at Blizzard even mentioned that when he was making these changes, he wasn't just keeping 1v1 or the campaign in mind, but also tested some of these changes over user-generated content, such as Direct Strike, making sure that that still worked, which proves that they had noticed that this map had gotten really popular and generally bodes well for things like the Reforged campaign project that I had previously played and shown, which is an amazing project. Leaving Reforged as a setting that remains accessible for everyone means that those maps shouldn't get bricked, as they are heavily leaning upon the implementation of Reforged graphics in order to have their...
I know Storm Knight had this big concern that all custom games are going to get broken with these classic skins and such. I don't think that should be the case, but yeah.
Maps be working properly now. And while I'm sure there's going to be some bugs that everyone definitely should report, care has been taken to try and make this integration as seamless as possible, and I, for one, really appreciate that. It's good to give criticism when criticism is due, but it's also good to give credit where it is due, without getting bogged down in some of the resentment and anger that we may have been feeling over the last few years. I know I have, and I bet you have as well. Overall, I'm super glad that there have been quality of life improvements and that Blizzard has read, listened, agreed, and implemented many pieces of feedback that has been given by me and many others of the community over the past few years. I feel like Blizzard is finally showing again the respect for the original essence and source material of Warcraft 3 in trying to restore kind of the look of the old client and even bringing lots of cool new features and quality of life improvements. I feel like it is restoring honor to Warcraft 3 and restoring the reputation of Warcraft 3.
Could that be because Chris Metzen came back? Is he responsible for this? I doubt it, but still kind of cool, the idea.
The world, and I hope they will continue to support for some time to come the client, the gameplay experience, and any ideas people might have for Warcraft 3 the game as well. Alright, that's it for me. I'm going to be closing out this video. Expect more videos coming from me to highlight some of the things that are new. Maybe I'll show you like my favorite graphics settings. I'll be looking for you guys' comments as well. How you made your game look good, what settings you like. Do let me know so that I can check them out as well. With 6 different toggles for Reforged graphic settings, there must be many permutations possible, and then you've got all the lighting and anti-aliasing changes, etc. So there really must be hundreds and hundreds of combinations that are possible, so you can find the one that you like best.
The easiest thing to do is just stop trying to make Reforged work and just make classic.
Same as before, so in the future, I'll be continuing to play Warcraft 3, both casual melee play, 1v1, team play, as well as the custom games that Warcraft 3 has to offer. And I hope you enjoyed both the Warcraft Direct show that you saw today, perhaps, as well as my video here summarizing the changes that have happened in Reforged 2.0, as we call it. And I hope you found this video entertaining and informative. And if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button upon the end of watching this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers, see you next time.
Cheers, Grubby. There you go. Very good video. Thank you very much. Obviously, give him a like. I'll do a link here for you guys. I'll put that, obviously, yeah, exclamation mark video shows up the video too, but I'll link it in my React video as well. So there's a couple bits I want to go over. So we're not quite done yet. So if you do enjoy the video, obviously go over to the link and like Grubby's video. And if you're watching this and you've made it this far, then also like this video and subscribe too. I'd appreciate that if you're interested. I do have to subscribe on it, actually. See? Ah, you tried to call me out there, Rebellious. Look at that. He tried to make me look bad. There. So anyway, there's a couple of bits that I need to talk about. In Grubby's 17 quality of life improvements to flood players into Warcraft 3, he had a cool idea about showing an icon over the unit, say for example an Ogre Magi or a Gnoll Trapper. There's no such thing as a Gnoll Trapper. There's a Dark Troll Trapper. There's a Gnoll Assassin. So you have one of those. You can have a Tome of Intelligence or Periapter Vitality, whatever it is. Have some sort of way to indicate that that creep actually can drop, right?
So my idea was,
I'll let him talk.
Just show a subtle book icon either over the HP bar, on top of the HP bar, or over the creep that is going to be carrying a Tome of Intelligence or the equivalent item drop, that could be quite nice.
So that looks pretty neat, but I feel like maybe that's a bit obnoxious. It really is something we would have to test as a community to get some sort of grounded opinion on what do we like. Do we like the portrait of the tome above the health bar? Do you want it like underneath it? Do you want some sort of blue or red aura indicator but without the tome, or an aura indicator with the tome? There's a lot of different variations here. So for example, when I was playing through the game yesterday, I noticed there was an aura over a quest item, and I can't remember if this was ever in the game before, and it only seems specific to this quest item. So for example, when I was playing here, huge Warcraft 3 changes, that's the video I did earlier. So you can see there's a treasure item, that's Gerard's Lost Ledger, which you need for the first level to complete the quest, and it's got this red glow, right? Look at the red glow around it. That could be a subtle way you could put that red glow underneath the creep, and then it could be blue if it's a chargeable item such as a potion, or red if it's a permanent item, or purple if it's a tome. Do you see what I mean? And that's a more subtle way of doing it, but the only downside of that is you won't know specifically what that item would be that it could drop. But it shouldn't really tell you that, because normally items come under a group of items that they can drop. So it could be a potion of healing, it could be a potion of mana, it could be a potion of 200 health over 30 seconds, whatever it is. Do you see what I mean? There's variations. So I guess the red aura or blue aura or purple aura is a good way to do it. That's interesting. They got a red aura around the icon.
I stand for the light.
And then it will dissipate once it's disappeared, because it's an aura. Auras take about 3 to 5 seconds to disappear. So if you have a hero, for example, Arthas here, if he dies, then those footmen that have devotion aura will still have it for approximately 3 to 5 seconds. That's just the way auras seem to work in this. They made Arthas black. I'm not sure if this is something I really need to talk about in this video, but that's an issue with the classic HD lighting system. I just played the video.
Honor.
So this is the problem. I don't want anything to do with Reforged. Why does Arthas look black?
The light is my strength.
Too much light.
Certainly.
See, he's black.
Bless you, Prince Arthas.
But what about the others who were taken away?
Don't worry, son. We'll find them and bring them home safe.
Warcraft 3 in 2024.
Lord Uther needs you at the Orc encampment immediately.
Never a dull moment. Let's get moving.
Let's get moving. So that's an issue with the classic HD, right? Is when I was playing it, the feel is still not right. Not only is like the frame rate still scuffed, despite the lovely looking classic HD models, which are maybe a bit too bright and shiny, but I can live with that because at least I can see it. It's better than looking too dark. But here we have a very original video, The Defense of Strombrad. This is way back in the day this one was done, or at least a long time ago before any of these changes. And you can see Arthur's obviously looking more normal there. But notice the speed of the horse as he comes through and the speed of Arthur's as they move. The Reforged settings, the way the units move is... Remember when Blizzard basically put Reforged in? They basically put it in the same engine because they didn't want like to be separate, which makes sense. But they had to change the attack animations. So when a footman swings his sword, it's going to land at the right point to get the noise and the damage be applied. But Reforged models look different to the original Warcraft 3 footman, so his arm might be more like that, whereas the original one might be more overhead. So either way, they had to change the looks, and it doesn't transition well when you're playing the classic HD Reforged that they've put in recently. So look at the knight. Look how fast he comes in.
Prince Arthas, Lord Uther.
And now look how fast Arthas goes back. That's what I get for skipping.
Immediately.
Never a dull moment. Let's get moving.
So they're just straight up moving. And that's how it should be. But in this, the way they did it in the Reforged,
Let's get moving.
it just looks daft, doesn't it? And that's how I think, yeah, it was done for Reforged. But it doesn't adapt well at all. So it's not right. So, yeah. That is that basically covered. A reconnect feature was not mentioned. Is that something they can do? That would be incredibly helpful for not only the esports community like Neo Back to Warcraft, because they can actually, if they have a tournament and player disconnects, it doesn't ruin the whole thing, which has happened literally before during a very big Reforged event at the DreamHack. That was huge, and it happened multiple times. But for me and other custom game enjoyers, you're playing an RPG. You've been in there for about an hour and 40 minutes. It's probably a 3-hour RPG. Oops, you disconnect. Well, I guess you got to start over again. It's not like you can go back in or load the replay and just skip to where you got to. All of that progress you made from the very start is gone. So why... That is huge for like custom game players as well. So if we could have a reconnect feature, that'd be great. And the other thing would be, I mentioned it in one of my other videos, the option to change the wallpaper. So if you go to graphics, I can change it to Kerrigan, for example. So come out, go to the lobby, there's Kerrigan. If I want Kerrigan to look a little different here, options, and try Griffin, for example. That's a planet. So, how cool would that... Oh, that's rather, yeah, that's probably the ship. But why not have this for Warcraft 3? Like you had it with the classic. You could have different wallpapers. It's not super necessary, but it would be cool. That's just another thing you could have. And the UI to show the control groups. I like the hotkeys showing off on the control groups. So, when Grubby was going through it. Here you can see the G, S, H, A, P, O. I feel like that's nice and clean. But there is one other thing. This is a screenshot I took earlier of in-game. This is Reforged Illidan. So pure Reforged graphics. Now, take a look at the icons here. G, S, H, A on the command card. Now look at the Reforged Classic HD+. So, I think it looks a lot better, the character. But the command card at the bottom right, and just in general, kind of has like an almost huey glow over it. So look at this G, this P, this S, this H. So move, attack, all of this. There's this weird... If I do that, you can see more clearly. A stronger contrast between black and red. And then there's this weird green kind of-ness to it that shouldn't be there at all. Yeah, someone upped the contrast like crazy. And then this is just classic. That's how it should look. But the downside of classic is it's a little blurrier. So if you look at this, for example, compared to this one, you can see this one is the Reforged Classic HD Plus versus the original sword of Classic. So I don't particularly notice it that much, but it could be sharper. So if you go to filter, you can sharpen this up, and that's what that is. If you sharpen this up 2 notches, that's maybe a bit too much, but you can sort of see that's more akin to how it is to make it clearer. Thank you, Benny. But this is kind of what happens if you sharpen things too much. It kind of gets all these weird little pixelations on it. So that glow is just wrong here. This glow here, this glow here, this glow here. It should look more like that one. A strong black background with the red icon. So that's just one other thing I wanted to point out. A very minor thing, but certainly something I noticed. And yeah, there you go. If you enjoyed, then thanks for watching and have a good afternoon. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.